All right, so I cannot remember the last time, if ever, I've made a video like this, and I'm gonna ask you guys to be patient, bear with me, and if you want to grab snacks, if you want to grab your coffee, your soda, your tea as a comfort food or drink while we have this conversation, I encourage you to go and grab those and then come right back. First, before we get into the topics I feel like talking about today, I first want to explain what I'm drawing on screen. So what you're seeing is a character reference sheet I am working on for a role-playing group that takes place in the same universe as my webtoon, Love Cursed Queen of Rogues. So if you're a fan of that steampunk magic landscape, I have a great recommendation for you for a role-playing group. And we're taking new members, so all you gotta do is ask about it down in the comments. I will legitimately answer each individual comment with anything you need to know in order to play, if that's something you want to do. That said, let's go ahead and get into sort of the main course of today's video. If you've been following my channel for a while now, you are probably familiar with my hiatuses, not the random week-long or 2-week, maybe even 3-week breaks between uploads, which I usually don't go more than 2 weeks without a live stream at least, but I am referring to specifically my annual hiatuses in March and September, where I take a month off. It's a scheduled break from my channel, and it used to be up on my channel banner, but I removed that at some point when I was doing the redesign, so it's something I may want to put back. But the reason why I haven't is partly to do with this conversation that I'm trying to have right now, which is the fact that as a social media artist, it can be really, really hard to boil down who you are for content's sake, and it can lead to certain symptoms. And one of those symptoms is the unscheduled breaks. What is the cause of unscheduled breaks? Why do we start off so exuberant and pumping out content, and then as time goes by, it gets harder and we get slower? Or if we're not getting slower, we're actually putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we're working through a lot of moments when we maybe aren't feeling motivated, but we're still getting the job done, but it doesn't feel good. And I think that one of those reasons is because it's performative to at least some degree, and so we feel pressured to perform and to be good performers, and that can stress us out and cause a lot of anxiety and turn our art into a chore. Another issue might be that you have established a certain quality of work that you now feel like you have to always perform at that level or above in order to keep your followers satisfied, and that might be entirely projected. They may not have even said anything to you, but you would still internalize that, still feel that, still hold yourself to that standard. It might also be restricting what kind of things you show, do, say, or the parts of yourself that you include in your content, because you're trying to establish a very specific brand identity. All of those things I just mentioned, I feel like we typically house all of that under the umbrella of burnout. We consider that kind of a package deal when it comes to overworking your passions, but there's something else that could also contribute to these unintended breaks, or this slow breakdown of our momentum. And I don't know if it really gets talked about that much, and so I just felt compelled to make this video because that's the part that's really impacting me recently. And it's extenuating factors. It's things outside of your artwork that are wearing you down. They're eating away at your emotions, they're eating away at your mental capacity, your energy levels. These external stressors can actually rob you of your joy if you're not able to invoke the discipline it takes to still pursue that joy in spite of it all. And that's not a shortcoming on any artist's part. If they're unable to power through, I think powering through itself is a coping mechanism that we have developed to try and shortcut getting better, so that we can continue in the short term, and not necessarily see the effects until maybe further down the road. Quick pause just to take a drink. But let's be realistic, the effects do catch up with us. Eventually, no matter how hard we push through, because we are human beings and not machines, it does start to show. The cracks start to show. And I feel like that has become self-evident with my own channel and the shortage of curated content. And if you look at last year alone, I only made 3 edited videos. I did Inktober Light with gel pens last October. I made a how to stay motivated in the Webtoon 2025 contest video 5 months ago, and then just 4 weeks ago, I released my post art fight debrief video, the looking back at art fight 2025 video. That's it. But that is essentially what I'm talking about when I say we procrastinate and we use these coping mechanisms to keep ourselves going, and we're delivering the bare minimum. I really do enjoy live streams, and I 100% believe that they have their place, and I think that they are not replacement material for curated, edited videos. The live streams are enrichment material, but I really did want to be building my channel around very intentional content, very high quality videos, and not necessarily just the live stuff. And this is where the video gets kind of personal, because now the question remains, why is it that I haven't been able to create the content that I want to create? What is it that is stopping me, if not burnout, if not my brand identity or my social media artist identity, which, to be completely honest, does play a part in it. I do feel a little bit constrained in my niche, and I have tried breaking out from that by creating combined topical videos. And what I mean by that is my sketchbook travel series, where I tried to take 2 topics into 1 video, but it didn't really land with nearly as many people as I had hoped it would land with. But that's not going to stop me from continuing to do it, because I enjoy it. And since the desire to continue those videos is still there, then obviously something else is going on, right? And that something else is those external factors I had mentioned. I'm going to break this down into 2 parts. First, what hit me the hardest this year and had the greatest impact in the last 12 months. And then I'm also going to talk briefly about some long-term fatigue, some things that have just really been a challenge in my life since starting this channel in 2020. And I'm not gonna lie, this is really the whole point of the video and the straw that broke the camel's back, and led to the I can't keep this up anymore mentality. Part of breaking down these restrictions around brand identity is just creating more space to be your authentic self. I'm going to embrace that by just sharing a little bit of what's actually been affecting me. This year, 2025, I lost my job back in March. I was without a job and without a paycheck for 6 months, 6 whole months, half of the year, before landing my new gig, which I have only been in that position for 3 weeks so far as of recording this voiceover. As I'm sure you can imagine, spending half of the year financially insecure has a really big impact on a person's ability to engage or indulge in anything that they might consider to be frivolous. But I really did do my best. Despite the stress, despite the anxiety, I was still able to focus on opportunity in the art space. I saw the Webtoon 2025 contest and was able to really focus on that as both a potential job opportunity and as an outlet for my artistic pursuits, which I still filmed. But even that had a shelf life, and as soon as the results were out, it was time to recalibrate. And luckily for me, the timing lined up perfectly with Art Fight, and so I was able to jump right from the Webtoon contest into my annual Art Fight content and annual Art Fight actual art, even if I was still battling the joblessness and still having to stretch my budget with what money I had left in savings and how much I was able to receive in UI. Not to mention, but I'm going to anyway, all of the strategy and planning and effort that went into coming up with contingency plans in case I wasn't able to get a new job before the funds that I did have ran out. All of that stuff is so mentally and emotionally exhausting, and even physically, I felt myself lacking physical energy sometimes to even get out of bed. And I know that's probably linked to depression symptoms, but it just compiles sometimes, and it can become really, really difficult to continue showing up online and acting like everything's fine because other people don't need to know your problems, or they don't owe it to you to care about your problems while you're trying to stay connected. And even though it's the first time I'm really bringing this up in an actual video, in my DMs, I've probably done all of this oversharing one-on-one with a couple of trusted friends who are also content creators and can kind of relate to the chaos, essentially. I wish I could stop there and be like, yeah, that's it, that's everything. But the truth is, it's been more, it's compiled over the course of multiple years, not just last year. And I started this channel during the pandemic, the last time I lost my job, and I was unemployed for almost, I think, an entire year. I was doing commissions on Etsy in the meantime, where I also started my first webtoon, Venerable, because I was unemployed, and so I had all this free time, and I was trying to maintain my sanity, trying to stay motivated, trying to stay creative, and not give in to darker emotions that plague you during tough times. And I ultimately ended up moving across country to get a job in Los Angeles, where there's just a lot more jobs available in the media industry, which is where my career is. But think about that too, a move of that magnitude while also trying to maintain my creative pursuits as if nothing else was going on, trying to keep up with a weekly webtoon schedule, trying to make sure that I'm putting out videos on a consistent rotation. It's a lot. And then getting that new job and replacing my Monday through Friday schedule with earning a paycheck. Once you start something, it's really hard to put it down. It's even harder to give it up. And once you've double booked yourself, you committed to a project, and then you take on a whole nother job, it's next to impossible. But I was down for trying to conquer the impossible. At that point, I was still doing collaborations. I was collaborating with S Comic Maker. I was collaborating with Jamie is Fierce on YouTube. I was doing webtoon collaborations with other webtoon creators. I was still very much engaged and very much immersed because I still very much had the energy and the zeal to keep going. And all of that really started to slow down once I had gotten to Los Angeles, and not because of the job, even though that ultimately did start to take more and more of my bandwidth up as I got further and further into my role with that company. No, what ultimately slowed me down, and what has quietly been working against my creative outlets in the background has been far more personal than a job. And this is something that most people have no control over. And so if you're also experiencing this, you have all my sympathy, and that's medical needs. In the last 4 years, I have had 3 LASIK surgeries. I know, I know that sounds insane, but I had the initial LASIK on both eyes, and then I ended up going back for a LASIK touch-up on each eye individually because they weren't fully corrected the first go around. And while that wasn't very emotionally or mentally exhausting, it was physically restricting because I had to be cautious about how much time I was spending staring at bright screens during the healing process all 3 times that I had to go through it. The thing that really has made being a social media artist extra difficult for me wasn't the LASIK. It was something I haven't talked about before on my channel, at least not in any edited video where I had to immortalize this out loud. My husband and I have been together for 15 years, and it's been a struggle we've known about for a very, very long time, but it's very expensive. And so we've spent almost our entire marriage working out how we were going to be able to afford that and figuring out like what insurance, what job will help us, how much money does it cost to put away in savings? And then we put the money away in savings, and then COVID happened and we had to use that money, to pay bills during COVID. Like there's a whole just domino effect of how this has impacted our lives. And then we got here, I got the reliable, job, and we were able, between the two of us and our combined salaries, to finally afford IVF. And we've been pursuing it for the last 4 years, which, has involved so much time, effort, emotional investment, financial investment, mental investment, physical investment. I've had 3 surgeries as part of this process. We have tried 3 times already to do an IVF implantation, and we're still trying, and it means limiting my diet and limiting my physical activity and taking a whole bunch of medications that have made me gain so much weight, and seeing myself on camera physically change has been really impacting me as well as a creator. Even knowing that all of that is for, something that is a very high, probably the highest priority for me, even higher than my art or my growth as an artist on YouTube. So much so that we continued pursuing it even through losing my job in March of this year and spending another 6 months chewing through our savings to pay the mortgage and pay the car payments and the insurance and all the other bills and do IVF. At some point, when you add all of these things together, everything I've talked about since the beginning of this video until the end of the video, you reach a breaking point where you just kind of realize that this is not sustainable and something's got to change. And I don't know if that means being more transparent on my channel in an effort to combine my different priorities, or maybe my next move is getting some help and hiring an editor to share some of that creative workload so that I can live my life and still grow my art presence online. And I welcome any advice that you might have for me. Thank you so much for listening and being here, and I hope to see you next time.